Hello guys, and welcome back to another Raising Reef video. In this new tank build series episode, I'm going to be updating you on a couple of new items I've got to put into the new tank system. So two items have turned up today and we're going to be adding them to the new sump. So the first item I'm going to talk about today is the new return pump. I've ordered two of these exactly the same. One will sit on hand ready if I ever need it to replace this pump if it ever breaks, or if I decide to take this off for a thorough good cleaning, and I can replace that pump with the new pump and then switch them alternatively as I need to take one off to clean. This way I always have one on hand in case one breaks, and I don't have to get to clean it directly straight away. I can take it off, soak it in some vinegar and water and give it a thoroughly good clean, and I don't have to worry about how long the system hasn't had a pump on it. This pump sits within the sump chamber and it feeds water back up into the display tank and therefore keeps the water continuously circulating through the filtration system and acts like the heart of the system. So this particular pump is a DC pump. It uses 24 volts and it produces 30 watts of power. At full power it will pump 4,000 litres an hour, and at lowest power it will pump 2,837 litres an hour. It comes with 3 hose connectors depending on how you want to connect it to your system. It has an 8mm connector, a 12mm connector and a 16mm connector. So let's open it up and have a little look. So inside the box you get a pump. It's relatively small. The dimensions of this pump are 14 centimetres by 9 centimetres by 11.5 centimetres. So it's a reasonably small pump, doesn't take up much room at all. It has a grate that can be fitted onto the front section, and that will stop any large pieces of debris getting drawn into the pump, or if it happened to be in an area where there was fish around, then that would stop any fish from going through and getting sucked into the impeller. There are fixings that fit to the top, but I've already removed them from the box as I'm going to be using those to connect to my hard piping. It also comes with a power cable, a transformer to convert the AC voltage into DC. There is a controller which allows you to adjust the power settings up and down with 10 different increments. It also has a feed button that if you press that, the shuts off power for a 10-minute timer and then it will come back on again automatically. You also get a little sticky pad that you can fit to the back of the controller in order to mount that to the side of your aquarium stand or the inside of your stand or wherever you want to put that. You used to get a few other fittings that can be screwed into the front in case you wanted to use this pump with a pipe attached to the front of it. I'm not going to be using the fittings, so they're superfluous to my needs. So that's the controller. All of the other stuff can go back in the box for now. These Jebao or jecod, however you want to say it, it's the same company, they just seem to put different names on the packagings. They're a Chinese made pump, they're reasonably cheap, which is why I was able to buy 2 of them and keep one as a redundant pump. They get a bad rap from people saying that they're cheap and they don't last very long. I haven't found this to be the case in my experience. I've been using this brand of pumps since they first came out, probably somewhere in the region of 8 years ago. I originally bought one of the first pumps that they produced, which was the DC 6000 pump. I run that on my old system for about 3 or 4 years with no problem whatsoever. When I broke that system down, I then sold that pump on to somebody else, and as far as I know, they got some good life out of it as well. I then, for my next tank, used the same brand of pump again, but I used the DC 12,000 pump, which is twice as powerful, and I used that to power my whole system and a manifold which fed things like reactors. Again, I didn't have any problem with that for a good 2 years. I then sold the whole system on to somebody else. I still maintain that system and it ran for another year or so with the same pump on it. It did eventually fail after 3 years in total, and we've replaced it with exactly the same pump. And a year on, it's running just fine. I then purchased a newer version, which is the version very similar to this, if not exactly the same. that I run on my current system behind me. I've been running that one for 2 years. I've had no problem with it whatsoever. Occasionally it slows down or it gets stuck or stops, very rarely, but I'll take it out, give it a good clean and put it back together, and it works like a dream. I can't fault these pumps for the price point. I think they're good value for money. Being a cheaper Chinese made pump, if you order them directly online and they come to your door, though you'll get them cheaper, they will not really have any warranty. So if it works for a couple of weeks and fails, you'll be hard pressed to get your money back or get it repaired. I've not had any dealings with their customer service. You can buy these pumps from retailers all over the country. They are now stocking these pumps, and if you buy it direct from them, you will pay a little bit more money for them, but you will have the year's guarantee added to it. So you'll be able to take it back to the shop, say your pump's not working. They will in turn take the hit, or as a retailer, because they buy them in more quantity, are probably more likely to be able to get a result off of the manufacturers. I've decided to buy them online, mostly because of time constraints and not being able to get over to pick them up. Plus they are a bit cheaper, and I was able to buy 2 of them. So that's my reason. If one turns out to be a dud, it does work out a little bit more expensive in the long run, but you pay your money and you take your chance. So we'll be adding that to the tank in just a bit. So the second item I want to talk to you about today is a new skimmer. This is the NYOS Quantum 120. And for anyone that might not be familiar with what a skimmer is and what it does, a skimmer is a piece of filtration equipment that this particular one will sit into my sump, and it will feed water in through this front intake, and it also feeds air into the system. It mixes those two things together to create a foam. That foam travels up the body in a sort of vortex motion. Micro bubbles attract proteins out of the water, and proteins in the form of organic waste. This waste builds up in the foam and collects at the top, and as it builds up the neck and it becomes more and more dense, it then overflows into the collection cup, and it's therefore been removed from the water column, essentially cleaning the water. You can then remove this collection cup from the top. You can remove the lid. This one has been taped on, so I won't remove it just at the moment. And then you can tip out the contents, give it a clean round, make sure it's nice and clean, and then it will just slot back onto the top. In most cases, you don't need to turn this skimmer off in order to service it. You can just remove the cup. If it is overflowing, it will just flow back into the sump. It's not really a big problem. This particular unit will service aquariums from 100 to 500 litres. What's supposed to be different about this particular skimmer is it's got something called a hybrid wheel. Within the pump there is obviously a propeller which serves the pump and draws the water in. This one has a needle wheel and a lattice wheel hybrid, which is supposed to be more efficient. It's made of lighter materials, and it should equal lower energy consumption and lower maintenance. The pump itself only consumes 8 watts of power, so it's relatively efficient, and it also consists of a new piece of technology, what they're calling a NYOS twister plate. This is what sits in this section of just above the pump, and this helps to create more contact time by swirling and mixing the air bubbles with the water for a longer period of time before they break at the surface. These are supposed to be really silent, so they don't make a lot of noise, which is quite an attractive trait. It has 9 titanium screws which secure the body to the base plate, and there's also 4 connecting the skimmer pump to the base plate, and there's 1 in the top which secures the twister plate to the top of the pump. They are all exactly the same size and screw threads, so you can't mix them up, which I think is a good touch. It also has the ability to adjust the water level within the skimmer. Depending on the depth that the skimmer sits in will affect where the water level sits and how far up the pump will push the water. You can adjust this so that you can set the water level by twisting the entire stem on this side. Then once you've got it near enough where you want it, there is an fine adjustment on the top to fine tune that level. In addition to this, there is a small screw thread in the front of what is the air intake. You can see that there, and that is attached to a tube which runs down to what's called a venturi, which sits on the front of the pump. which is where the air and the water is brought into the unit and mixed. There is an adjustment for the air intake as well, in case you needed to fine-tune that also. This isn't usually a feature that you find on many skimmers. I think the theory behind it is a little bit dubious. I was always under the impression that the more air that you can get in to mix, the better. I could be wrong on this, but I can't see why more air isn't better than less air, so I don't think I'll be restricting it any great deal, so we'll be leaving that open, I believe. If I can get some more information about why you would want to reject the airline on this, I will take it into consideration and I will use it if I deem it necessary. But that's a pretty simple piece of equipment. It can be stripped down completely into its individual parts for cleaning, which is important with a skimmer. It's also made of high grade acrylic, which is suitable if anybody wanted to use it with an ozone. I'm not going to go into what ozone is. Those of you that want to use it will know what it is, and this can be used with ozone if you desire to. So we'll also be adding that to the system, and we've specifically designed the sump system to fit these particular items in. So the baffles in the sump have been positioned in such a way that they accommodate the size of this and the return pump specifically. One other item that I want to talk to you about today is the lighting for my refugium, which is now going to be located within the sump itself, and this is the light in question. Now this isn't a new light, this is a light from a nano system that I have previously owned. It's exactly the same type of light that is on my current refugium over exactly the same type of nano tank. That is what's called a Micro Habitat 30 by TMC, and this is the small aqua ray light that they provide with that tank. This clips onto the side of the glass aquarium, and you can adjust it with a clip to put it onto the white or the blue light. I will just be running it on full whack with all the lights on. So far so good with running it on my current system. It grows the macroalgae really well. Happy to use it on my new setup. It's not designed as a refugium light, although having run it on my current refugium and in comparison to my lights that I run on my main tank, I find the colour to be a little bit undesirable. It's very white, almost a bit yellow in comparison to what we've come to expect from a reef tank display. So as far as this light goes, I think it's pretty much perfect for growing macroalgae. I wouldn't recommend it for growing coral. Not I'm saying it wouldn't grow coral, I'm just saying that you wouldn't get the best colours and the viewing experience from using a light like this. So we'll be adding that to the sump also today, just to show you how it's all going to be laid out. So here's the sump. We're going to fit the equipment onto the sump here so that you can get an idea of how it's laid out and how it's going to work. This sump has 3 chambers. The first chamber being this big area here, which is going to be the refugium. This is where I'll grow macroalgae. There'll be a sandbed in the bottom, there may be a few bits of live rock in there, and we will grow macroalgae in there as a means to stabilise the pH in the system and reduce nutrients. The front section will have the skimmer, and this skimmer fits just nicely in there like that, as you can see. This skimmer is 15 centimetres wide, and I have given it 16 centimetres of room, so there's 5mm either side, so it fits in there just perfect, as you can see there. So the water will dump down into the refugium, and in this area the macroalgae will get its chance to absorb any of the nutrients out of the water it wants to continue to grow and help to remove those extra nutrients from the water. Once it spills over into this front section, the skimmer will get its chance to draw the water in and take any proteins and dissolved organics out of the water before they've got a chance to break down. Here there will be a calcium reactor, replacing any elements that are being used up from corals and inverts in the aquarium. And in this last section there will be the return pump. This section again has been designed with this pump in mind and has been made specifically the right size to accommodate this pump. So there is just a little bit of room all the way around this pump, which means we can maximise the space of the refugium. The light, as I said, will clip onto the side of the sump, and it will be able to light the refugium, and it won't be getting in the way of anything else. So that pretty much concludes this tank build series episode. In the next episode I'm going to be doing some plumbing to the new aquarium. I'm going to be running the drain lines from the overflow box down into the sump, and the return lines from the new pump that I've shown you today back up and into the display tank. So if you don't want to miss out on any future upcoming episodes and the progress of this new system, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell notification if you want to be notified of any new videos and when they come out. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and take it easy, and I'll see you in the next video.